What's going on YouTube? Florbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be looking at some of the day one results from the Utrecht Regionals that is going on right now. So it's actually a pretty big weekend in VGC. This is not the only Regulation I tournament happening right now. There's actually 3 this weekend. So if you look on Pokédata, you can get the results from Utrecht, of course, but you can also look at some of the other ones that are happening right now. So if you go to VGC standings over here, and if you look, there's actually 2 more that is happening right now. If you look at Melbourne, this is another one that's even ongoing right now. Day 2 is happening as we speak, and we'll be looking at this one in its entirety, of course, along with Utrecht Regionals. Not necessarily in this video, but just like, to go along with this one. The one thing that I will highlight already that I did see that was actually kind of interesting was that there is a Giratina Origin team in day 2, A3 right now from Drew Bliss. So stay tuned for this tournament recap. But Giratina, with Levitate and Terrafire has always been a pretty interesting threat in Regulation G. I will say that, just because Calyrex Ice Rider can't hit it, right? Because you can't click high horsepower onto this thing, and you can't even click Glacial Lance all that well because the Terrafire is able to resist that. And then if you're afraid of the Shadow Rider stuff, this is where like Wide Guard support from Zamazenta really comes in handy. And even if you don't want to Terra the Giratina and you're afraid of the Glacial Lance, this is again also where the Wide Guard support really comes in handy. And again, another instance where you get this strong Ghost type partnered with that Fighting type coverage, which is again very popular right now in terms of the dual restricted pairings. But we'll speak more about this in our Melbourne recap video. But along with this, if you even just go back here, there's also another regional happening right now as well. There's the Santiago's also happening right now. I don't know if we actually have everything from Santiago. Okay, so we just have the records right now. We don't actually have the open team sheets right now. So you'll have to stay tuned for this as well. But at the very least, 2 more events happening and more data that you can look at for Regulation I. If you're still trying to get your foot into the format here. But some interesting things are happening in Utrecht, and we're going to be looking at some of those stuff along with the cores, the usage rates, and see how the carryover is affecting the results over here. And when I say carryover, I mean like, from Milwaukee, right? Because that happened, just like days into the format where it was like official. But now that we have another regional here, so now we can see if people actually took those results into account and brought them over into these 3 regionals this weekend here. All right, so let's take a look at the usage rates first, and then we'll look at the squads themselves from day 1. All right, as far as like the top restricted pairing heading into day 1, it is Miraidon Lunala. How about that? And again, look at our graphic, with the 6 mods at the bottom of our screen. We've had that for throughout a lot of the month of April, and for good reason, because we very much believed in this combo, and look at the results even right now. So nice to see that. And again, the Wide Guard support really helps out the Miraidon, because again, the Glacial Lance is interesting in itself, and then sometimes these teams run Ursaluna, which is almost like a restricted in itself. So you can always do like the Wide Guard Earthquake stuff, which is quite nice when you think about it. And the Ursaluna is great into the mirror, especially against other Miraidon Iron Hands teams where you can just smash them both. They can only Terra 1, right? So at that point, you're also taking advantage of Trick Room, so you can just simply support the Ursaluna with the Wide Guard support. And again, Ursaluna being weak to something like a Glacial Lance, this is again also where Wide Guard comes in really handy. And again, with the Wide Guard Earthquake interaction, you can't hit your own Lunala because that's how Wide Guard works, right? Then the second most used pairing is a Miraidon Calyrex Ice Rider. Of course, very impressive. You get a strong Trick Room mode on top of this, and things that want to potentially bring in something like a Rillaboom, to change Miraidon terrain. They can't really do that just because the Ice Rider puts on so much pressure into them. And then you have the Ghost fighting restricteds, like we mentioned earlier. You have the Zamazenta Calyrex stuff, which was, again, at the start of the format when it was announced, it was the duel to beat, and people were well prepared for it in Milwaukee. We'll see if that is the case yet again here in Utrecht. And of course, the Koraidon Lunala stuff. Again, the Sun partners are very strong with this pairing. Again, think about Brute Bonnets, think about Fluttermane Chiyu, very aggressive cores that can also play relatively balanced, right? Just because they have a lot of tools that can, set each other up. And the weather control is also very powerful when you have the Sun on your side. But as far as like these restricted pairings, no surprises right now as far as like day one. Maybe you might argue maybe there could have been a Ho-Oh Miraidon carryover from Milwaukee, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the 5th most used restricted pairing. But if we look at the just individual restricted usage, now look at this. So there you go, Miraidon Lunala at 1 and 2. Lunala shooting up to at number 2. How about that, Ab? And then look, the Calyrex is at 3 and 4. So again, it really shows you that Lunala is just an amazing restricted in a dual format, because it can really define its role here, where you can support the other restricted in terms of like helping it set up and letting the other partner deal damage. Because when Lunala was by itself, you wanted it to do both, right? But it was hard to do both. You wanted it to deal damage, and you also wanted it to support, and you only get 4 move slots. So it was often a little bit too much in terms of a workload. Now you can say, I can have something else deal a lot of damage and let Lunala settle into that bulky supportive restricted role that can click Trick Room and Wide Guard and still deal a decent amount of pressure into other Pokemon, because again, you still have a pretty good special attack stat. So usually sometimes these bulky Trick Room setters, they don't really deal that much damage, but Lunala can deal damage, especially if you can go for that +1 Meteor Beam in the beginning and then start clicking those +1 Moongeist Beams, those +1 Expanding Forces. But yeah, it's really good right now. And then look at Ho-Oh finally entering our graphic here in restricted usage at 10.7%. Oh my goodness, right? That's definitely your Milwaukee carryover, of course. And then Kyogre getting a little bit of play now as well, 11%. And then Zamazenta and Koraidon rounding it out here at 18 and 16% respectively. So, what are we learning right now? So you can see, again, why the carryover here, from the Ghost restricted with the fighting types, they're already here within top usage. Then it's very clear, like, these Miraidon teams are quite popular, whether it's like Lunala Miraidon, Miraidon, Calyrex Ice Rider, and then, believe it or not, there's actually a rising pair that's doing relatively well here, and we're going to spotlight that in a second. And I think it also did relatively well in the recent global challenge, but we'll speak about that when we look at the teams. But now in terms of just the non-restricteds, what do they look like? So this is the usage rates for these guys. Again, you need to be able to support your dual restricteds, right? So these are very easily your staples right now. Look at Grimmsnarl, man. How about that? Okay, this is definitely our era right here. The fact that we can have Grimmsnarl be the top prankster used Pokemon as opposed to Whimsicott and Tornadus here. I for one welcome this. And I kind of want to just do like a separate video on Grimmsnarl in general and regulationI. But the whole idea is, when you have all these Ubers dealing so much damage, and you need a way to mitigate it, right? Think about like Sword and Shield Dynamax stuff. Grimmsnarl was great there, and it's also great here as well, just because the screen support lets you ruin a lot of damage calcs. And if you're able to stay on the field, survive, and get off your own attack and pick up a KO, that just makes all the difference in the end game, right? And then of course the Thunder Wave stuff for a little bit more speed control. The hacks that you can get, 1 Para Hacks is all you need to win a set or even to win a game there. And then you always have options like Foul Play against both Calyrexes, or Spirit Break against some of the special attackers like the Shadow Riders or the Miraidons that don't want to be taking Spirit Breaks, right? Even Lunala doesn't want to be taking Spirit Breaks, because then everything just hits like a wet noodle after 1 or 2 of those. Okay, and then look at this Urshifu and Incineroar at 1 and 2 over here. Then Iron Hands at number 3, as opposed to Rillaboom. Again, usually you'll see Rillaboom at, within the top 3, but it has dropped in usage, of course, just because. Think about it, these Miraidon teams are using Calyrexes, and these Koraidon teams, they have fire type attacks and they have Chiyus, and it gets a little bit harder to use it when you have these ice types and fire types running around. So Rillaboom, unfortunately, is taking a dip in terms of its usage, but it's still pretty good, right? Top 6 at 21% there. You still have Priority Grassy Glide, you still have Wood Hammer, of course, that can deal a lot of damage as well, especially into like Ursulines that haven't turret yet. So, you still have things going for you if you are Rillaboom. You're still like a really good Fake Out Mon. You're still relatively bulky with that Assault Vest, but times are changing in terms of what you can have in that slot as opposed to something like a Rillaboom there. But then after that, look at this down here. You have Ferrograph, of course, really good on those Miraidon teams in general, just because those options, Miraidon running a Choice Specs or Assault Vest for that matter, and you have an Iron Hands with potentially an Assault Vest there. And these are things like they're just weak to priority moves or weak to Fake Out, and then the Ferrograph is really good there in terms of supporting them, and sometimes they run the niche Roar move to be able to get their Miraidon out of there if they want to just nuke something with Draco Meteor. Fluttermane, Chiyu, very common staples on those Koraidon teams. Usually they go hand in hand, and that's why their percentages are relatively equal. Then you have Amoonguss. Again, not as high of a usage as it was, in the previous formats, just because more Miraidon means more electric terrain, which means no Spore. And then after that, Tornadus and Chien-Pao rounding out your last two slots there. So overall, we see a couple things here. Rillaboom dropping is a reflection of the regulation-I meta with more Miraidon, more Calyrex, more Ho-Oh, by the way, right? The Rillaboom doesn't like Ho-Oh either, right? Meteor, and then, just after that, Iron Hands being really strong with those Miraidon teams. Grimmsnarl in a dual restricted format with screen support is really strong. And then the Sun teams are utilizing their Fluttermanes and their Chiyus, right? So no real surprises in terms of day one from the non-restricted tiers. So now that we've established the board state, just in terms of the stats, now let's actually look at the teams and see where we stand in day one and what could we look at into day two, because that's going to start relatively shortly, because of the time difference, right? So let's take a look at these. Okay, so we've got the top 8 on our screen here from day one, and we got some pretty interesting ideas. But look at this pair right here, Miraidon, Kyogre. So remember when Darsh and I did our tier list, this is one of the pairings where we thought could be pretty cool, but we just weren't sure what the partners might look like. And it looks like a C tier or low B tier kind of idea, but here we are. So 8-0 from Nick Ulmer, right? And a lot of these partners make sense. So Tornadus, Tailwind support, kind of like Whimsicott with Tailwind on those Miraidon teams here. But instead of Whimsicott, we have Tornadus, and you get 100% accurate Bleak Windstorm, or in this case, Hurricane. And I would imagine, why would someone prefer Hurricane over something like Bleak Windstorm? Because this is probably a workaround from the Wide Guard stuff, from Zamazenta or Lunala, because if that's your only attack and they're clicking Wide Guard, what are you going to do? You can't click an attack. So, Hurricane is at least a workaround for that, at least to what I understand. And then from there, you have Manual Rain Dance, of course. That's going to be good against Koraidons that want to switch in and whatnot. You have the Ice Beam coverage. The Ice Attack on the Kyogre makes a lot of sense. It's great into Rillabooms and Raging Bolts that want to come into the Kyogre matchup. And then, to still protect your Ogre against priority damage, right? From Grassy Glide or Thunderclap, this is where Serena comes in. And Serena, Tornadus, Kyogre, Urshifu, this was always a pretty cool Regulation G team, right? And then after that, you just rounded it out with something like Amoonguss or Chien-Pao or other good supportive mons there, or even but then Iron Hands also works out here, right? Because now Iron Hands on those Kyogre teams, we remember that from the internationals last year, but then now you add this with Miraidon, and now it makes sense because now you still have this anti priority mon with Serena, which is fulfilling this Ferrograph idea, which supports the Kyogre and the Miraidon at the same time. So this is pretty cool in essence, right? So the Serena is kind of playing that anti-priority role that a Ferrograph would play, right? But now, of course, it's a completely different mon in essence, right? Because this thing deals a little bit more damage. It's a grass type, which is great in the rain. Okay, you got the ice coverage that you need to be able to deal super effective damage against some of these other Miraidon teams. And then Wide Lens, of course, you don't want to miss. Taunt is great, just to deny setup, deny Trick Room ideas. And then you have double taunt over here, right? So that's going to be important. And then the Urshifu, of course, just does a lot more damage in the rain here. Makes a lot of sense. And then the real surprise here, of course, is the Miraidon Thunder as opposed to Electro Drift. So here's the thought process. I mean, this is kind of like the Koraidon concept where Collision Course versus Close Combat. Close Combat has more base power, right? And because of that, it can actually pick up some rolls and pick up some KOs that normally collision course can't, right? Sorry, I couldn't quite find the words there. And I would imagine the Miraidon idea is a little bit more similar to that, where like Thunder has more base power than Electric Drift, right? Because if you put both on the screen here, so let me just put Miraidon. Okay, if you look at the Electro Drift, it does this, right? It does 100, but then you look at Thunder. Wait a second, Thunder has more base damage. I remember somebody commented this like in one of my other videos, like, hey, how about Miraidon Thunder with Kyogre? I was like, but then why not just use Electro Drift, right? But then now I understand, oh, wait a second. This is more base power, and this is almost doing like the Koraidon concept, right, with close combat and collision course here. Now, of course, this is less consistent because again, you need to have Kyogre on it to be able to hit. But at the very least, if Electric Drift is doing super effective damage, you are always like, overkilling things anyway, just because of how it works. Again, you deal a little bit more damage with super effective hits. But then Thunder, if it's super effective, it's dying anyway, just like Electro Drift. But now, if it's not, Thunder has a little bit more base power, and at the very least, you also get this chance to get yourself some power hacks, right? 30%. Hey, look, if you told me I had 30% chance to win $1 million, I'm taking that chance. Okay, so pretty cool to see Thunder Miraidon within the first place over here. I want to see how far this thing can go. So congrats to Nick for a pretty cool idea to try and use. Okay, the Serena pick is nice. I like it. And Iron Hands, Tornadus, Ursh, Kyogre. That's just like an older regulation G core here, which actually works out with Miraidon. So shout outs to this. I think I saw this in the global challenge. I'm not gonna lie, right? So again, great idea here. And then as we look down, some other cool things, like there's another Kyogre team here, by the way. So Kyogre is finally actually picking up some play, because we saw like some Swordfish play in Milwaukee, but didn't really do all that well. But now you have this idea with Roaring Moon, Among Us, Iron Hands, Urshifu. This was also seen in Milwaukee and also like prior online tournaments. Just didn't really get the results that it could have gone. But now we see it here. Again, 7-1, strong. And again, this is like a different region. But Ice Beam coverage here. Okay, you've got the Among Us for your Trick 'em matchup. Tailwind from Roaring Moon. Again, the Dark typing is really nice for the Calyrex. And then, your Acrobatics is doing great damage into Among Us, Rillabooms, the Ogre Ponds. And then the speed control that you can get with Booster Energy, making sure that you get your Tailwind up first, even though it's not pranked, so it's still great. Then the Urshifu, Iron Hands, again, similar idea that we saw from the first team. Again, Urshifu doing more damage from the Rain, and then Iron Hands is just a great Trick Room mod to have along with the Among Us here. Again, fake out pressure with Roaring Moon here, set up your Tailwind, and low kick doing like 50% into the Ice Rider, depending on their spread, is quite effective in all honesty. So, but the second place team here is a Zamazenta Shadow Rider team, and now we got some interesting partners, right? We've got Chen Pao with Zamazenta, which we've seen before, of course. Raging Bolts, good solid balance mon, right? With Thunderclap, Photosynthesis great into ideally your Koraidon matchups, just to get a nice little booster. Terra Electric, a little bit more damage, along with Magnet, super effective. Among Us here, Rocky Helmet, again, your Trick 'em matchup. And then Tinglu here is quite interesting. Look at this. It's an AV Tinglu set with Sand Tomb, so you can trap things. Ruination, Snarl, Snowness. And by the way, Ruination is a nice little tech that could see a little bit more play, and has seen a little bit more play in this tour in particular. I can show you another instance where it was used. But Ruination, great idea into something like Lunala, right? Because you can break the Shadow Shield, get it down to 50%, and then all of a sudden pick up a KO with something like a Foul Play, right? Or like another super effective move that you can deal into it. So like Snarl, for example, doesn't want to be taking that. So I kind of like that, just to immediately deal 50% into Lunala just right off the bat, and just 50% in general. And then, this can break Sash, of course, and it just makes it so that, stuff like Raging Bolt can pick up KOs, and, things in range, which is something like Thunderclap for that matter. Astral Barrage, Psychic Encore here from Calyrex, pretty standard here. How about Crunch? Ice Spinner from Chen Pao. By the way, this is Life Orb Chen Pao, and then this is Sash Shadow Rider, right? So again, I raised the question, do you want to reverse the items? Do you want to go Sash, Chen Pao, and Life Orb Calyrex, or do you want to flip it here? Sam is saying, I want to flip it, and I'm going to go off of the idea that was rising into Milwaukee. right? With you know, like the online tournaments from April, and I'm gonna go with the Life Orb Chantal here. So this makes sense here. Then we've got the Wheezing stuff here. You knew like Wheezing could be really strong in Regulation I, just because again, shutting down abilities is annoying. Okay, and Poison Gas, just doing so much chip, putting things in range for Calyrex, especially the Life Orb support here. Expanding Force with Indeedee, again, it's a good spread move here along with Astral Barrage. And then your one real workaround against Wyguard is, again, just use your Terra Blast, Terra Fighting. It's going to help you get around Incineroar and the other dark types that are running around. You have your own Wyguard support with Zamazenta. The Chiyu here, of course, you know, with Calyrex just helps to do a little bit more damage. Great into the Mirror. More Roaring Moon action. So 2 Roaring Moons here within the top 8. Then, how about Cohen over here? Like, Entei, you know, I'm not going to lie. Entei is a pretty underrated fire type to use. And has always been pretty nice into, you know, Miraidon teams. Because, again, pretty good into Rillaboom especially. And Sacred Fire Entei, right? And you know, you don't have to commit your Ho-Oh slot when you have Sacred Fire Entei. And you're faster anyway. And then you can still do, like, Priority Extreme Speed, Terra Normal stuff. So that's also a workaround for Lunalas, right? Or even, like, Calyrexes. So, yeah, I kind of like that. And, you know, you still have, like, a pretty standard team. You know, Whimsicott, Iron Hands, Urshifu, Single Strike. Again, like, with the Urshifu, breaking through Lunalas and Calyrexes and ignoring Grimmsnarl screens. More important now because there's so much more Grimmsnarl, of course. But ironically, again, look at the top 5. No Grimmsnarl yet. Okay, but, of course, this is still, like, day 1 stuff. And then finally we get our first one here at 8th place over here. But look at Jamie Boyd's team over here. Okay, we'll look at that in a second, right? Because there's a cool Pokemon over there. But let's look at Louis over here. It is another Calyrex Shadow Rider Zamazenta squad here. This one's a little bit more standard, right? The Fire, Water, Grass stuff here. You know, Instant, Rillaboom, Ursh, Zamazenta, Calyrex. This is like a very typical EU team that you would expect to find, right? Just your balance boys, right? And then pick your double restricted here. I thought this would be something like Terrapagos here, but again, Zamazenta, Calyrex is also like pretty strong here. And then the Ogerpon, you know, pretty boring team, but again, it gets results. So, you know, you can't disrespect it. But then you look at Jamie Boyd's team over here, man. Okay, so we got Discharge, Miraidon. Makes a lot of sense because, again, you've got a Blood Moon Ursaluna here, which, again, doesn't care about Discharge because you are a ground type. You've got Grimmsnarl that can also go Terra Ground, so you can always do that. And then look at this Grimmsnarl set. I love it. It's not screens, okay? It's Fake Out, Fake Tears, Thunder Wave, Foul Play. Imagine this, you know, just, you could do like Fake Tears, you know, with supporting your Miraidon here. It could either do, you know, Electro Drift, Draco Meteor, Voltage. Any of these attacks, you know, with Fake Tears it's just going to be a pretty bad time for the opponent, right? And then you still get the speed with Thunder Wave, and then the Foul Play into the Calyrexes. The Fake Out pressure is really nice. And, you know, Grimmsnarl and Volcarona, you can do like Fake Out Quiver Dance, right? And then the Volcarona ends up becoming a pretty cool win con, right? Very nice into, you know, Zamazenta stuff. And, you know, 1 speed boost is sometimes all you really need to outspeed things. And then you got Fiery Dance, you know, getting these special attack boosts. So Volcarona, another really good one, you know, this format, along with Entei, very strong, especially like with Miraidon. And then, of course, look at this. First of all, it's AV Blood Moon. And then it's Snarl Blood Moon. All right, again, we talked about this in our Milwaukee video. Like, Snarl could be like a really, really good tech, you know, on the rise. Because, again, you break Shadow Shield. You pressure the Lunalas and the Calyrexes for that matter. And, of course, Miraidon doesn't want to be taking Snarl either, right? So this just beats the mirror entirely, right? You know, the Miraidon can't do anything. You Snarl it and that's it. It can't really click its electric moves. And then if it wants to click Draco, it could. But that's why you have AV. And then you have the Snarl, and now all of a sudden it's -3, and you have an AV, and how are you going to win that matchup? You don't. So smart idea here from Jamie. Okay, but the Calyrex, look at this. Hex, oh my goodness. All right, so, you know, just imagine what could happen here with the status. Oh no, what are we doing, Jamie? And then another Terra Ground option, right? So lots of ideas with Terra Ground here, right? Not just the Blood Moon, but of course the Terras from the Grimmsnarl and the Calyrex. And then finally, we have the Chestnut with the Electric Seed, okay? And here is your Wide Guard support, okay? So if you're committing Miraidon Calyrex, no Wide Guard, but you can have it now when you have the Chestnut here. So you have Wide Guard and Body Press, okay? This is your new Zamazenta. And then, you know, again, with Electric Seed, you're getting that defense boost. So now your body press is actually doing a pretty decent amount of damage. And then, of course, the Spiky Shield. And then Leech Seed is crazy. You know, think about when we looked at Darsh's team from Milwaukee. Leech Seed, Calyrex, Ice Rider. Now we've got Leech Seed from Chestnut here. Again, this is like these endgame scenarios where like you're just alternating Protects and Leech Seed, and things are getting chipped. They have to switch if they don't want to take any more chip, and then all of a sudden they're out of position, right? And then they're just forced to take a Electro Drift or Astral Barrage there. And then, you know, you're just putting things in range after like so much Leech Seed tip, and then Astral Barrage just picks you up, you know, with Life Orb. So what a smart idea here from Jamie. Again, I want to say it's like, it's not even like budget Zamazenta. Like it is because it's got Wide Guard and Body Press, but then, you know, the Leech Seed is kind of funny. So it's a nice niche here for Chestnut. I want to try and use this. I don't know if Jamie's going to make this team public, but if they do, man, I would love to feature this, or we can just build this ourselves and then just use it anyway. Covert Cult Grimmsnarl, by the way, again, makes sense because again, you're not really running screens. You don't need the light clay here. So yeah, I want to see how far Jamie gets with this in day 2 here. All right, and then finally we get another Grimmsnarl here. So Grimmsnarl at 7 and 8 over here. This is your typical Grimm set here. And again, Volcarona, Iron. Yeah, this is like what we saw from Milwaukee. This looks like almost like Joe's team here. But yeah, again, Overheat, Will-O-Wisp, Rage Powder, Protect, supportive Volk set here. Ice Rider, Miraidon. But look at this, it's Scarf Miraidon. I'm tired of playing speed ties is what Paul is saying here, and I'm gonna go for these faster snarls, okay? And then I'm not going to be losing my Draco Meteor speed tie. I'm going to be the one that gets it off first. And then coaching Urshifu, pretty cool again. And Surging Strikes with the Choice Band support. You know, we've seen this before already. So great job there from Paul. But nice stuff from the top 8 there. But you know, there's more teams within Top Cut here that I want to see. So let's look at these. All right, let's look at some of the other teams here and let's see some notable compositions. So right away, I've already see like in 9th and 11th place over here, these the Pagos Calyrex balance stuff over here. So of course, this is the archetype that I thought would do relatively well, I should correct myself, should do better in the EU region as opposed to the NA region. Look at this, Calyrex, Shadow Rider, Pagos, Calm Mind stuff, Encore Disable. Then you've got the Instant Rillaboom idea with the Ogerpon, and then of course Amoonguss rounds it out for your Trick Room matchup there. So Calm Mind, you know, able to set up the Pagos, you can blow up terrain, you can blow up weather from Koraidon, of course, and then you know, you can just use the Encore Disable stuff for the Calyrex to protect the Pagos from stuff like, you know, Body Press from Zamazenta and whatnot. So all in all, I think these kinds of squads, just like the other one I said earlier, a little bit, I want to try to find another word besides boring, but you know, we even have a rental for this, you know, just in case, you know, people like this type of playstyle, but it's really good, you know, just the double fake out, set up the Calm Mind and put things in range, you know, for the +2, you know, Terra Starstorms and whatnot. It's totally fine. It works. How about here, Michael Kels? Okay, more Grimmsnarl teams here with Miraidon, Calyrex, Ice Rider. How about the Landers coming in here? Again, ground type coverage, really good. So instead of the Ursaluna or even like the Iron Treads, we're going with Landorus. And again, being able to outspeed Chiyu by 1 point is pretty good. Taunt here as opposed to, you know, Sandseer Force. But again, Earth Power Sludge Bomb, relatively standard in that sense. Then, you know, just a couple more things here. This one's the Ursaluna idea. Again, the Electric Seed Lunala, the AV Miraidon with Snarl, then the Ursaluna. This is, of course, we've seen this, you know, in the previous Milwaukee Regionals from Tang and Carson Confer. How about here? One of the Nielsen brothers here. Again, Sneasler. Oh, we can't even look at it. Oh, that's so unfortunate. But again, Sneasler here with Zamazenta Miraidon. We'll probably be able to see this in day 2. But Sneasler, Electric Seed, finding some usage here. I actually don't even know if it's Electric Seed, but we'll see. I think it's the Fergef that's actually the seed there. But yeah, anyway. All right, this one, the screen's Miraidon Ho-Oh idea with Sinistra. So again, you know, just being able to keep the Ho-Oh alive, you know, because there's lots of pivoting in and out. With Ho-Oh, you want to bring it out, you know, just to get a little bit more recovery. But then Sinistra comes in and also loves to do hospitality, heal the partner. So there's some good ideas there with Sinistra and Ho-Oh. And again, you know, Sinistra able to redirect super effective electric moves and water moves away from the Ho-Oh. You get to resist both. Then you have Life Dew support just to be able to get yourself back up to full health there. Calm Mind support with screens and fake out is really good. Hard to beat it. You can't Icy Wind it either because you have the Covert Cloak. I think we saw this from Dawei in the previous region. Really, really good idea. Okay, this is the more hyper offensive variant as opposed to Grimmsnarl. It's the AV Instant over here. You know, just fake out Trick Room, Parting Chant into Ursaluna. We know something like this, so as expected to do well here. How about this one? This one is Smeargle here with again, another Wide Guard user with Spore and Fake Out Pressure would follow me. You know, kind of interesting to have Spore with your own Miraidon, but it works because, look, there's double terrain here. So you got Rillaboom and Miraidon on the same team. You usually don't see that, but Instant Urshifu here. No Iron Hands, no Ferrograph here, but you do have this Smeargle. So there's an interesting playstyle here that, you know, might raise some eyebrows when you're going against it because, you know, you don't really prepare for something like this. And I guess, you know, Pascalis, you know, was able to take advantage over here. So I like this a lot there. I want to see how far this Smeargle variant goes. Here's another, again, another Landorus idea. Again, the same kind of squad. You know, again, Leech Seed, Calyrex. You saw this from Darsh, right? From the previous regionals. So again, we just saw Leech Seed, Chestnut here. But again, the Leech Seed Calyrex, again, putting things in range, chipping things down for the eventual Glacial Lance is going to be very, very strong. So I respect it. I think it's pretty cool here. There's actually a couple Groudons here, right? So like here's one here from Carmine, Italian VGC player here. So Groudon, Miraidon. I never thought I would see this, you know, at least this high. You know, a 7-1 result's pretty cool, but you know, you're pretty weak to Ice Rider. I always thought with this pairing, right? So the partners had to be really, really good against it, and there is. So you've got Instant, Terra Water, Ferrograph, and the Iron Hand. So you know, you do have the tools to help you against the Ice Rider matchup, especially with Will-O-Wisp Pressure and Foul Play and the Iron Hands clicking, low kick here. Volcarona, of course, with Quiver Dance ideas. You have the double Fake Out Pressure that can do it. So I get it. It does make sense. And then, of course, Volcarona doing a little bit more damage in the sun. Urshifu not doing as much damage because, again, the sun is out for the Groudon over here. So it's quite interesting to see this kind of idea. But again, I like it. It's different. It's unique, and not many people are using it. I think this is the only kind of pairing with this kind of supporting cast that has it. So I like to see more if Carmine can go far into day 2. This one is Aurelian, right? This is the whole screens idea, but we've got Ursaluna Ferrograph stuff over here. Again, the ground typing is really good here. We had Urshifu in this slot here, but again, I like this idea. Just again, Miraidon, Ferrograph, Iron Hands, the typical 4 with Grimmsnarl, and then you round it out with the Ursaluna as your ground type for the mirror matchup. Okay, how about this one? There's a Porygon 2 sighting, right? So you've got Ice Rider Pagos instead of Shadow Rider Pagos. But again, physical attacker, special attacker, okay, makes sense. Instant, Ogre, Pond, Amoonguss, and then Trick Room Setter with P2. Again, P2, you know, Shadow Ball there. Lunala can't hit this thing, and neither can the Calyrex. So there's your one niche for Porygon. And then Tri-Attack Hacks is always pretty funny there. And then Shadow Ball, you know, if you can clear it correctly, it does so well into stuff like, you know, Flutter Mane and, like I mentioned, the other Ghost types all in all. So nice to see Porygon to enter, you know, the regulationI meta, at least for one particular squad here. This is more Volcarona screen support. We've seen this already before. How about this one? This one's also pretty cool, right? Another Aurelian player. What was he? Was that also Aurelian? Oh yeah, we got 2 Aurelian players. both friends. All right, so this one is Okidogi and Blood Moon Ursaluna with Miraidon Ferrograph. All right, so we've seen a familiar core there. Then we have Grimmsnarl screens and Ho-Oh again. Again, a very, very good starting core that you can use. You know, just Miraidon, Grimmsnarl, Ho-Oh there. Then usually you'll see like Ferrograph, Iron Hands, but instead we're going with the Okidogi in that slot there, and then Ursaluna here with Life of Support. Again, another Snarl user here, so AV Okidogi with Snarl. Again, you can't really intimidate this thing. So if you want to intimidate the Ho-Oh, it doesn't have Clear Amulet, by the way. So then you're gonna suffer at the hands of Okidogi here, and Ferrograph helps this relatively well because again, you got Choice Specs and the AV Okidogi there, so not letting yourself be prone to like the fake out stuff. But Poison Jab, Drain Punch, Snarl, Knockoff. Good move set there. Great against Terra Fairy. Great against the Ghost types. And the AV gives it a little bit more bulk, especially behind the screen support here. I like it a lot. It's another different build here. And now we're starting to see a little bit more play from Blood Moon Ursaluna as opposed to regular one. So that's already pretty nice. All right, is this just the AV Miraidon Star? Yeah, it is. All right, how about this one? So how about Lunala Zamazenta, right? Wide guard here, but then this, yeah, this is the way I think you have to play it. If you're going to do Lunala Zamazenta, this becomes the wide guard user. Then you add the fake out bros, and then this becomes Calm Mind Lunala with the Grassy Seed, by the way. So now look, you got a defense boost going, then you got the special defense boost going, right? And then you get more of that with Calm Mind support because you got fake out pressure here. So I like this a lot. So no surprise to see this do relatively well. And then look, you've got double wide guard here with Pelipper, and then the Pelipper gives you wide guard support, and it gives you weather control, and you get speed control with Tailwind. So Pelipper, a jack of all trades on a team like this, pretty cool here. Raging Bolt is just like, you know, your standard balance mon over there. But yeah, nice idea there with that type of Miraidon squad. Lomazam. How about more Zacian stuff here? More Swordfish, but look at this Iron Jugulus instead of the Roaring Moon. Right, Snarl, Hurricane Tailwind. So again, another Snarl user besides Chiyu. Again, Snarl being really good. It's Scarf Ogre, which I like a lot because now you get to run Thunder, and then Ursaluna, Instant, and Mungus stuff. Right, so interesting. Usually you'll see like a Lunala with something like this, just because, you know, setting up Trick Room is something that Instant and Mungus Ursaluna love and enjoy. But now we're running Tailwind ideas with Zacian, Kyogre, and Iron Jugulus. So makes sense there. This is Swords Densation, by the way. So, you know, shout outs to that. Wait, where was... Did I pass it? I think I did, but no, we'll probably get to it. There's another Zacian squad that I want to peep real quick, but I think we have to scroll a little bit further down just to be able to see it. But yeah, moving forward, how about this one right here? This one is more Pago Shadow Rider ideas, but this is Screens Pago Shadow Rider with Rillaboom Instant. Okay, instead of Amoonguss, we got Grimmsnarl here. And again, Volcarona, again, the good, solid fire type. Struggle Bug, Rage Powder. So there's our redirector as opposed to something like an Ogre Pond. Okay, you can play it that way. Yeah, this is the one I was looking for. So, Mr. Damai Palmer, again, a longtime VGC player who we've had on the channel in years past. But look, he's running Runation Chenpao. He's been advocating for this for a while now, you know, the last couple of weeks, right? He's always insistent that, like, you got to play Zacian character like this. And this looks like our rental also, but again, the Runation Chenpao makes a huge difference. Like what we said earlier from the Tinglu Runation, you get to break Shadow Shield very easily. And of course, because you have the ice coverage on Chenpao, you don't need to run Ice Beam on Kyogre. Instead, you can run Thunder, which is good because you need this to be able to hit bulky water types. So I think Thunder makes a lot of sense here. Substitutization is also really good. Helps you get around the Intimidate cycling in the early get-go. And then, of course, Torn Urge stuff with Kyogre just is relatively standard there. So, yeah. And then look at this. Right after him, at 49th place, Tobias. Look, more Swordfish play. So nice little resurgence from Kyogreization here that we thought could be pretty good back in Milwaukee, but now you're finally getting a little bit better results here. But let's see how they do in day 2. But again, no Runation here is sent. It's just Crunch and Sucker Punch here. Then Ice Beam and Ice Spinner over here. This almost looks like our rental in all honesty, right? But this is really good. So good job here from Tobias. And then look at this, more Swordfish, right? Look at this. Zacian, Kyogre, Instant Amoonguss, Landorus, and Roaring Moon, right? So again, of course, Sandster Storm from Kyogre. Again, Landorus really good into Miraidon and the Iron Hands. Then you've got Roaring Moon here. Again, this is your Tailwind setter. That's a Dark type. You get another one here with Instant, Fake Out, Pressure. So, you know, lots of Swordfish teams into day 2. I think there was one that we skipped here. Miraidon, Lunala, Hyper Offense, right, with Tailwind, Whimsicott. So that's cool. Fake Up, another team with Rillaboom and Miraidon on the same team. Okay, this one is just another relatively standard one with just regular stuff here. Then as we go further down, so what else? Oh, look at this. This one is a little bit more balanced. Look, there's another Entei. So Shadow Rider Zamazenta, but Chenpao here, Entei, Raging Bolt, Amoonguss. So No Tailwind support here, a little bit more balanced stuff. It's banned Entei, all right, and it's AV Raging Bull with E-Webs, okay, and then the Shadow Rider is Sash with Nasty Plot there. So Life Orb Chen-Pao yet again with Ice Shard Pressure, right, putting things in range. We like that a lot. Then look at this one. How about this? Groudonization. So another Groudon team, but you didn't expect this. But Jumpluff here with the Tailwind, good Chlorophyll stuff. We've seen this multiple times from, like Koraidon stuff in the past. But now you've got Walking Wake here, right? Life Orb, Hydro Steam, Flamethrower Draco, Ogerpon Cornerstone. And then the Zacian is here, okay, to help you put pressure against the Ice Rider teams. Because, Ice Rider kind of just has Groudon, Jumpluff, Cornerstone for breakfast a little bit. Of course, you can always just Terra, but it would help if I didn't have to do that, if I could just, pressure it immediately with something like a Zacian. And Zacian can do that here. Not very common, but it does well here. How about this one? I like this one too. So like Miraidon Ho screens, but then you got the Therian Landorus. We've seen this before, just in terms of, another thing that you could do. Just in years past, like Landorus and Ho had pretty good synergy just because, again, you could Earthquake next to it. You had the Intimidate support because, again, Ho-Oh already had a pretty high special defense stat. Now you add a Landorus here, and even though they don't even have Earthquake actually. All right, again, not very great with Miraidon and Iron Hands here, but you've got Scarf Landorus with Rock Tomb support, so there's a little bit of speed control there, and this is good into the mirror, right? Rock Tomb against another Ho-Oh team, Stomping Tantrum, Terra Blast, Terra Flying. All right, and then U-turn here. So we haven't seen this Landorus in almost a year now. It's just not so great into our meta at the moment, but maybe now we can find some use out of it, especially with like Miraidon and Iron Hands and Ho-Oh running around here. You can intimidate them, or at least get some speed control with Rock Tomb, at least, with the Scarf variant. We'll see what happens, but I'm waiting for it. This one is just Dondozo stuff. Again, Dondozo is still looking pretty good. There's not too many checks for it right now. There's no Among Us clicking Clear Smogs, and there's no Haze user right now. So this is posed to do well. And it's the Droopy Tatsugiri. So like the Order of Body Press stuff, yeah, makes a lot of sense here. Toxic Spikes. We've seen this again. A Sneasel, Electric Seed. Yeah, I'm not surprised here. How about this one? How about the return of Tyranitar? Okay, Tyranitar in day 2 with this type of team. So it's Shadow Rider, Zamazenta, and again, T-Tar can break Sash, and you break Shadow Shield too. So don't forget that. So there's your nice little niche there for Tyranitar. And then you know who else Tyranitar is really good against? How about Ho-Oh? So Ho-Oh can't click if it's fire move that well. It can't really click Brave Bird all that well. So T-Tar looking pretty good in that matchup. And then, like we said, you get to, have a Dark type against Shadow Rider and the Lunalas, and you break Sash from Chen-Pao's, and you break Shadow Shield, like we said earlier. So, you get Taunt and Knockoff here. You have a Sash that's gonna help against like super effective body presses. Unfortunately, Urshifu Rapid Strike is still gonna look pretty good here, but that's just also why you have like Ogerpon and Rillaboom to help you deal with that, right? And even like Psychic Calyrex there. So all in all, there's still a pretty good niche for a T-Tar at the moment. So I think we might even see a little bit more exploration moving forward, but we'll see. But nice to see Tyranitar in day 2 there in that sense. Dilyomens, right? Look at this one. Sinistra, Miraidon, Calyrex, Ice Rider. Pretty cool synergy here, honestly, right? Just being able to recover and get yourself back up to full here. It's, Rage Powder, Life Dew support, Matcha Gacha. Again, extra healing here. Nice little niche there. No Ho-Oh, but you don't really need it. Still pretty good with the Miraidon Calyrex stuff here. This is just straight up Ice Rider Ho-Oh screens. We haven't seen this, but here we go. Tailwind Ho-Oh with otherwise relatively slow mons here. Not interesting idea here, but Rillaboom, Incineroar, Amoonguss, Grimmsnarl, I don't think they really care about Tailwind, but here we are. We've got it. All right, and look at this. It's, again, Leech Seed, Calyrex, Ice Rider, and this makes sense here because you got Rillaboom here. So a little bit more terrain recovery, along with Leech Seed, forcing out switches, of course, and then just dealing free damage all in all. How about more Miraidon, Kyogre stuff here, Iron Jugulis, Farigaf. So, again, another Tailwind user with Miraidon here. So we've seen Whimsicott, we've seen Tornadus, now we see Iron Jugulus here. Hurricane with Kyogre, again, good synergy there, Snarl support. So I like this team. And then look, Urshifu, Rapid Strike with Ogre, we've seen this already. Farigiraf does make sense with Miraidon and Kyogre, okay? Because again, Farigiraf, a nice little partner there, just because you get to stop the priority moves and stop the fake out against both the Ogre and the Miraidon. AV also is pretty cool here. And then here we are, Ursa Luna here, which again, good synergy with Iron Jugulus because you can click Earthquake next to a flying type. I like this team. I honestly like it. I think this might be something worth exploring, as well as the other Miraidon Kyogre team. So, you know, here we are. Oh, we're gonna have a lot to talk about in day 2 here, you know, because a lot of these teams, they're pretty cool and they could do well, you know, in day 2s, but we'll have to see what happens. Look at this, another one, more Kyogre stuff. All right, Ice Rider Kyogre, and it's Smeargle here. Fake out Spore, follow me, transform. Wait a second, is that wait, is there something I'm missing here? Wait a minute. He gets this? Oh my god. No, Smeargle transform. Yo, that's crazy. How far is this gonna go? Yeah. Listen, yeah, EU's kind of cracked right now. We got some stuff. This one we got Ability Shield Koraidon here. Yeah, it makes sense with the Weezing. Shadow Rider. Ooh, hello. Yeah. Again, Weezing Shadow Rider teams are always gonna be good. I like this. This is very clever. Joseph Martin, smart idea here with the Weezing with those two. And then as we go down here, oh, look at this one. More Miraidon screens, Tinglu here. Runation, Tinglu again. Leftovers, Snarl support, right? Snarl and Runation. Smart idea here with Tinglu again. Reducing special attack damage. And then you've got Instant, reducing physical damage. Then you got screen support. This is a very bulky team that isn't dying anytime soon. All right, especially when you have Regenerator pivoting in and out. So I like this. You're taking less damage, and then if anything, you're going to recover more than what you were dealt because of all this damage mitigation there. So I like that. So shout out to Sebastian there. Man, all this was a pretty big regional. I think, how many did we have here? 600 plus. Yeah, we had 600 plus players, so that was pretty cool. All right, then look at this stuff here. Yeah, more Runation Tinglu. Rock Slide, very good against Ho-Oh. Doesn't want to deal with that. And then Iron Hands Lunala. Oh, look at, oh yeah, this, I thought this was a Miraidon team for a second. Hold on, this is Koraidon Lunala. And then you've got Iron Hands Chi. Yeah, so like Koraidon Lunala with Chi makes sense. Then you've got Fluttermane here. So you've got the Sun idea. Then you've got Iron Hands and Tinglu in your last 2 slots. Very, very interesting idea there from Finn. Okay, and then of course, the Iron Bundle Miraidon stuff, right? Farigiraf, Iron Bundle, Iron Hands, and the Miraidon. Yeah, again, that's the classic 4 that you want to use with the bundle. And then, of course, your second restricted, it's going to be the Ice Rider here. Okay, I respect it. And then Ogre Pond Cornerstone, which is, again, another good partner with the Calyrex. Again, Sturdy is also really, really solid here. So, all in all, pretty cool teams. I'm not going to lie. I like the Kyogre resurgence here. We'll see how many find their way into Top Cut. But all in all, I think day 1 was very promising and a little bit more meta development, which is good. You know, we like to see that. So we'll see if the other 2 regionals are also going to follow suit. We'll do recap videos of them as well as they wrap up their day 2s. But nice to see this from day 1. Again, this is the one with the stream. The other 2 did not have it. So that's unfortunate. Hopefully one day we can get more streams out there for those places. But let me know what you thought of Utrecht, and let me know what you think could win day 2 here, or win the whole thing. I should say just win the whole thing, not win day 2. But yeah, we'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and enjoy day 2.